Welcome to r/Entitled Parents, where an entitled parent literally murders someone. Our first Reddit post is from ZarafFaraz. I always thought these crazy people who don't mind their own business must be a rare breed, and that I would never encounter one, but somehow I did. So a little bit of background before I start. I was born in Pakistan, but came to Canada when I was 3. But by that time, I could already speak Urdu, Punjabi, and Hindi. The languages are fairly similar in many regards. And then I came to Canada, and English was my 4th language. As I grew up, I also learned Arabic, French, and Japanese to varying competencies, but all within the realm of conversation. Having grown up in Canada, I have no accent when I speak English, so you wouldn't be able to tell me apart from a Caucasian person if you spoke with me over the phone. But also having learned so many languages, I'm able to pronounce a lot of sounds fairly accurately. So I sound authentic in all languages that I speak in to all but native speakers. Most of the languages that I know sound different enough from each other that someone that doesn't know them can still tell that the language is different. I've traveled back home to Pakistan a few times, and I would always encounter those beggars who come with elaborate stories. Like, my wife is sick and she needs surgery, and I managed to get money for that, but I need money for the flight to reach her, etc. I came up with a fun counter to that, which was that I would act like I didn't understand them at all, and would start speaking in a different language that they wouldn't know. Japanese was my go-to language while in Pakistan. The reaction those people would have was quite hilarious. The cast of this story is Karen, the star of the show, Jimmy, Karen's husband and a decent human being, Zaraf, me, Wifey, my wife, and Singh, the restaurant manager. So, my wife and I were at an Indian restaurant in Edmonton, Canada, enjoying our dinner and having a conversation. We speak a mix of Urdu and English, just mixing with whatever feels easy. To someone listening in, they would be able to understand enough to figure out what we were talking about in most cases. We were sitting in a booth table, so it was only open from one side. Karen and her family, Jimmy and her 2 daughters that looked like they were in their early teens, were sitting at an open table with an empty table between us. My wife is Pakistani like me, and what some Pakistanis like to do is eat rice with their hands. I prefer a spoon myself, but at this time, my wife was eating with her hands. Apparently, this Karen got offended at seeing my wife eat with her hands. When she came over, I started speaking in different languages, acting like I didn't understand what she was saying in English. I'll translate what I said and put in parentheses which language I said it in. Here's how it went down. Karen walks over to our table with a sour expression on her face. Jimmy calls to her, telling her to sit back down and leave us alone, but she ignored him. She addresses my wife directly. "What's wrong with you? Can't you eat your food in a civilized manner like the rest of us?" I say in Urdu, "Huh? What do you want? Can't you see we're eating?" Karen looks at me with surprise. "What did you just say?" I say in Urdu to my wife, "Don't talk to her in English, just do what I'm doing." And I say to Karen, "You're just a crazy woman, go sit back down." "Why aren't you speaking in English?" My wife starts smiling, and I try hard to keep a straight face. My wife says in Urdu, "We are just enjoying our meal, why don't you go and sit down?" "I just heard you speaking in English. I know you can talk in English." "Yeah, I can, but I choose to not do so." I think she's getting upset. I know, that's what makes this so much fun. "Stop it! Talk in English like I heard you before." I say in Japanese, "So you were listening in on our conversation. Don't you have any manners?" "Wait, that's some other language now. What the heck is this?" Jimmy says, "Leave them alone, Karen. They don't speak English." "I know they do. They're just pretending not to." "It doesn't matter. Just sit down." I start waving toward her table. "That's right. Go back to your table, you loud cow." "Karen, they aren't doing anything wrong. Leave them alone." She's eating with her hands. I can't let the girls learn her uncivilized ways. I say to my wife in Hindi, start licking your fingers. My wife starts licking the rice off her right hand off the top parts of her fingers, and that makes Karen rage even more. Oh my God, look at how gross she is being. Stop looking at her if you don't like it then. I say in Arabic, hey you dumb jerk, do you behave this way everywhere you go? He changed languages again. I know he did. His accent changed. I say in Japanese, yep, and I can keep changing. Speak in English. You must have heard them wrong. They don't know English. Leave them alone. Then why are they living here? They don't deserve to live here if they don't know English. I was having a hard time keeping a straight face, so I disguised it by raising my voice and appearing angry. I gestured towards her and then pointed at our table. Are you so dumb you can't even listen to your husband? Go sit down and stop embarrassing yourself. You don't deserve to be here. Get out. At this point, the restaurant manager Singh shows up and sees what all the commotion was about. He's an Indian guy with a pretty heavy accent when he spoke in English, so I knew he'd speak either Hindi or Punjabi. Excuse me, can you please keep your voice down? What's going on here? This woman is eating with her hands and it's disgusting. She's corrupting my children with her barbaric ways. Ma'am, there are no rules that forbid her from eating with her hands. Please leave them alone or I'll have to ask you to leave. Now Jimmy gets up and comes over to where Karen is. Sit down, Karen. You've embarrassed yourself enough. This is why I can't take you anywhere. I say in Punjabi, ignore this dumb cow. Her brain is smaller than a laddu, an Indian sweet. The manager starts laughing at my comment, and Karen gets even redder in the face, since she probably thinks we were making fun of her. All of you should go back to your country. Jimmy just takes her arm and leads her back to their table and sits her down, telling her to shut up. Her daughters look like they want to sink into the floor from embarrassment. I ramble a few more sentences in varying languages as a kind of venting before my wife tells me to just leave it alone. We finish our dinner about 10 minutes later, with Karen glaring at us the whole time. I go pay the bill, and as we're walking out of the restaurant, we pass near Karen's table. I call out to Jimmy in perfect English with no accent while smiling and give him a wave. Hey buddy, I hope you enjoy your dinner. Have a good night. Karen's eyes bulge as she screams, I knew it! See, they know English! She tried to stand up suddenly, but instead ended up falling over backward in her seat. My wife and I left the restaurant laughing before she could do anything else. What kind of moron goes to an ethnic restaurant and then yells at people there for eating ethnic food in the ethnic style and then speaking the ethnic language? What a moron! Our next Reddit post is from Gaming-Onslaught. Hello again. I decided today is a good day to tell the story about the entitled dad that turned my whole life upside down. So let's get on with this. This happened 6 years ago. It was a week after my birthday and we decided to throw a late birthday party. My parents were busy with work on my actual birthday, so we rescheduled the party. I invited quite a few of my friends, but one of them didn't seem to show up. His father called my parents saying he'd be late to the party. The party was from 7 p.m. to 12 a.m. He never showed up. Once the party was over, we were heading home. We were about 5 or 10 minutes from Oslo because we had the party at our lodge just outside the city, and talking about how fun the party was. That conversation was cut short when a vehicle drifted into our lane and collided with us. I blacked out. When I woke up in a hospital bed, I started to panic. But the doctor that was running tests on me to make sure I'm okay told me to calm down and that I was alright. After about 20 to 30 minutes of questioning and small tests, I asked the big question. "Sir, where are my parents?" The doctor basically froze there for 10 seconds and responded, and I'll never forget what he told me. "OP, I'm sorry, but your parents didn't survive the crash." My parents were deceased. I was informed that my dad was killed on impact, and my mom was pronounced dead when she arrived at the hospital with me. I couldn't believe it. I wanted to cry, but all I felt was anger. I knew the person who drifted into my lane was at fault, so I asked who crashed into us. It was my friend's dad, that goddamn entitled dad. Apparently, entitled dad was under the influence of something when he arrived and was currently handcuffed to a hospital bed. One of the nurses told me later that he was demanding help before his son was treated. His son was on freaking life support because of the accident. He was sent to jail for a DUI, and I don't know if he's been released or not. But if he's out there, he better hope we don't cross paths. I'm currently living in a foster home with a wonderful family who treats me like I'm their own flesh and blood. But as long as I'm alive, I'll never forget my real parents. And I'll never forget my best friend. And I'll never forgive entitled dad for what he did. Thank you for listening. Man, I'm sorry, OP. That's really tough to hear. Our next Reddit post is from NLGsy. My daughter's friend from school came home with her one day. They were doing girly stuff that normal 14-year-olds do. Makeup, nails, etc. I hear a blood-curdling scream and run upstairs, expecting the worst. I open the bathroom door and the girl is on the toilet with blood on her toilet paper. I was like, okay, she started her period, nothing too crazy. My daughter and I sit her down and I explain why we have periods and what that means for her from now on. We hug her and congratulate her on this next step of her life. Afterwards, we go get her supplies from the store and grab ice cream. She is all calmed down and feeling special at this point. I took her home and thought it was strange her parents never mentioned anything to her about any of this. She was 14 after all. About an hour later, I receive a call from her livid mother, who berates me for having the audacity to tell her daughter about those private things, and that she will learn things on her own just like she, the mom, had to. I was completely stunned. She had no intention of explaining anything to her daughter. She then said the girls couldn't be friends anymore. Her daughter would still come over without the parents knowing, and she still calls me to this day, 6 years later, for guidance in her life. I don't get it. What does this mom expect OP to say to this little girl? "I'm so sorry, little girl. You're bleeding internally. You're going to die." Our next Reddit post is from BabyShark. A bit of backstory. I go to school and live in Indiana most of the time. However, since I've already gotten off of school, I'm spending my summer in Chicago with my gram. Anyone who lives in Chicago knows that the public schools get off in mid to late June. So I like to spend a good amount of time just walking around and going to the park. I've only been stopped by someone once and I just let him know the situation. Yesterday, I'm sitting at the park on a swing, minding my own business. Now, I'm 14, but I have one of those 8 to 16-year-old faces, so I sometimes get strange looks. Up walks to me our entitled parent, someone who clearly asked for the manager at McDonald's this morning. We're talking anywhere from mid-30s to late 50s with 2 toddlers in tow. This lady is our entitled parent. It's fresh in my mind, but still not exact. Aren't you supposed to be in school? Actually, I'm already out. No, you don't get out until later this month. I go to school somewhere else. Then why are you here? There's no schools out for summer around here. Me, now standing up and putting my book down. I'm visiting my grandmother and decided to come read a book in peace in the park. Mommy, he's wearing a kitty cat shirt. I nod and gesture to my sweatshirt, which clearly says School Name Panthers. Yeah, this is the school I went to out in Indiana. You probably stole that so you could get away with all this. I'm calling an officer. Me, under my breath, for God's sake. And now you use the Lord's name in vain? Thank God I was saved by one of the workers at the field house who knows me. Ma'am, I'm gonna have to ask you to leave this boy alone. But he should be in. I didn't ask for you to explain. Leave him alone or leave the park. She gave me a dirty look before walking away. I thanked the field worker and went back to my book. That was r/Entitledparents, and this is r/puppy bloopers. Our next Reddit post. Dog. I literally just started. Our next Reddit post is from Gaming. Really? Oof. Can I go now? Thank you. Our next Reddit post. Oof. Woof. Our next Reddit post is woof. Bark. All right, come cuddle, but come on, come cuddle, Papa Dog. Come here, pooch. Oof. Arf. No, do you want to cuddle? Or if you don't want to cuddle, then let me work, dog. All right, fine then. Our next Reddit post is from Gaming-On. Ruff! Ruff! You go. Come on, man. Our next Reddit post is from Gaming-Onslaught. Dog. Dog. Arr. Arr. Roar. Woof. All right, fine. You win. Let's go play.